Today we have Princess Posey and the Monster Stew. I can't remember whether I have read a Princess Posey book to you before or not. Princess Posey is one of these princesses who is not actually a princess. That's just her name, kind of like Princess Pink. Remember Princess Pink? Anyway, this is not a story with magic in it. I don't think Princess Pink had magic in it. She's the one who would go through her refrigerator, then go up into a land of make-believe. So this is not make-believe. Princess Posey is a real little girl, and she goes to school. And you know why this book is orange? Because that's one of the colors for Halloween. And this is a story about Princess Posey and her class. You can see the little pumpkin there, celebrating Halloween. So maybe I will read, this is a chapter book. Let's see, there are many chapters. There are 10 chapters. We'll see how long it takes to read these. I may stop halfway through and then read the second half later. We'll see how long it takes. And the chapters are called 1, Flashlights Are for Babies, 2, The Funniest Time of the Year, 3, A Real Beauty, 4, Danny, 5, The Ogre's Eyeball, and we'll see what the other chapters are when we get to them. Chapter 1, Flashlights Are for Babies. You children are like wiggly worms this week, Miss Lee said. Posey laughed. Everyone else in the class did too. Halloween was only 2 days away. It was just so hard to sit still. She says they're like wiggly worms. They're all wiggling around and moving around. They can't sit still because they're so excited about Halloween. Yesterday, they drew pictures of pumpkins and witches. They played a counting game with black cats. Today, they were writing Halloween stories. Miss Lee let them work with their friends because it was special. You can talk quietly, Miss Lee said. I will come around and see how everyone was doing. Posey and Ava and Nikki were working together. See, that's them over there, Posey and Ava and Nikki. So were Luca and Nate. They sat at the next table. Okay, Luca and Nate are two guys. They're sitting at the next table. Posey was writing a story about a ghost. It wanted to carry a flashlight when it went trick-or-treating. The ghost is afraid of the dark, she told Nikki and Ava. That's so funny, said Ava, a ghost who's afraid of the dark. I carried a flashlight last year, Nikki said. Me too, said Ava. Posey had too. In kindergarten, she was afraid of the dark. Gramps, that's her grandfather, had given Posey his flashlight to carry. It was as bright as the sun. It lit up the dark street and made Posey feel safe. That's Luca and, who's Luca's friend? Luca and Nate. They're sitting at the next table, and those are the three girls. Trick-or-treating was exciting, but it was a little scary too. Are you going to carry one this year? Asked Nikki. Posey was about to say maybe when Luca interrupted. Flashlights are for babies, he said. Flashlights are for babies. Chapter 2, The Funniest Time of the Year. Luca, you be quiet, said Posey. Boys are so annoying, Posey wished. Luca and Nate sat farther away. And
Hello?
who's this?
Hello.
That's right. It's your grandmommy. She just came in to say hi.
Hello.
We're reading a story about Princess Posey. Okay, there goes grandmommy. Back to work in the kitchen. Okay. So, Posey says, Luca, you be quiet. Boys are so annoying. She wished they sat farther away. Only babies are afraid of the dark, Luca said. Yeah, girls are scaredy cats, said Nate. They are not, said Posey. Boys are scaredy cats, Ava said. Miss Lee came over to them. It doesn't sound as if you're talking about your story, she said. Luca is listening to us, Posey said. They're talking so loud, said Luca. I think you all need to get back to work, said Miss Lee. She waited while they started to write again. Then the phone on her desk rang. Miss Lee went to answer it. Posey turned her back so Luca couldn't hear. I have some excitement bubbles in my stomach, she whispered. She bounced once on her bottom. Pop! I've never heard that expression before. She has excitement bubbles, so she bounces up on her bottom and says, pop. She's just making a joke. I have excitement bubbles too, Ava said. Pop. Nikki said, pop too. Soon everyone near them was saying pop and bouncing on their chairs. Miss Lee hung up the phone. Boys and girls, she said. The popping stopped. That was Mrs. Warski. Miss Lee smiled. Her class is going to join us for our Halloween party. We will make monster stew. Monster stew? That sounded so scary. There they are. They're all in their class. That's Miss Lee in front. And where are the girls? Where are the three girls? Oh, there are the three girls right here, I think. And so, everyone wanted to know what monster stew was, but Miss Lee just laughed. You will have to wait until Friday to find out, she said. Look, there's even a little teddy bear reading the book up there. What if there's a real monster in it, said Posey. What if the monster's still alive, said Ava. It will scream when we eat it, Nikki said. The girls shrieked. They grabbed one another's hands. It was so much fun to be scared together. Halloween was the funnest time of the year. Chapter 3. A Real Beauty. Okay, hang on a second. I got to take my jacket off here. I'm in my office in my house, and it's a little bit warm in here, so just bear with me. I'm taking off my little reading jacket. Okay. Chapter 3, A Real Beauty. Gramps picked Posey up after school. Her mom was at the doctor's office with Danny. It was his 1-year checkup. Okay, so Danny is the little brother, and he's 1 year old, and mom is taking Danny to the doctor. So Gramps, that's the grandfather, is picking Posey up. Posey and Gramps stopped to buy 2 pumpkins, a big one for Posey and a baby one for Danny. I picked a real beauty, didn't I, Gramps? Posey said proudly when they got back to the truck. You sure did, he said. Posey's pumpkin was almost perfectly round. It had only one flat spot. Gramps said that was where it lay on the ground while it grew. When he saw it, he had called it a real beauty. That meant he liked it. When they got home, Posey tried to lift the pumpkin out of the back of the truck. It was too heavy. Here, let me do that, said Gramps. The picture there, he's helping get the pumpkin out of the truck. He carried her pumpkin into the kitchen. He cut off the top. Posey's job was to scoop out the seeds. It was hard work. Do you need some help with that? Asked Gramps. Posey held her spoon tighter. The seeds were slippery. The seeds on the bottom are stuck, she said. You may have to get your hands dirty, said Gramps. He pushed up the sleeves of Posey's shirt. Now you can dig in. Okay, she's got to stick her hands down in the pumpkin to get the seeds out. Posey reached her hands into the pumpkin. She pulled out a clump of seeds. They had long strings dangling from them. Gramps held out a bowl for her to put them in. Remember last year when Nick and Tyler tricked me? Posey said. Nick and Tyler lived next door. They loved to tease her. Last Halloween, they told Posey to close her eyes and reach inside their pumpkin. Posey's fingers felt something cold and slippery. It's witch's brains, Nick said in a spooky voice. Witch's brains. She stuck her hand down in the pumpkin where all the meat is and kind of gooey stuff. And then Nick says, it's witch's brains. Posey had a bad dream after that. You were pretty scared, as I remember, said Gramps. That was because I was 5, Posey said. They can't scare me this year. I'm 6. Just like Acadia. Although Acadia, you're going to be 7 very soon. You might even be 7 by the time you're listening to this, but hopefully you'll listen to it before you're 7. I guess that means you don't need my flashlight for trick-or-treating, said Gramps. No way, said Posey. Flashlights are for babies. Posey plunged her hands into the pumpkin again. She wasn't going to be afraid of anything this year. She wasn't. Chapter 4. Poor Danny. I think Danny's a little brother. Poor Danny. When Posey's mom came home with Danny, he had streaks of tears on his face. Uh-oh, Gramps said. Looks like someone didn't like his checkup. He screamed when he got his shot, said Posey's mom. I don't blame him, said Posey. Then we stopped at Hank's store on the way home, Posey's mom said. The ghost Hank puts near the front door every year scared him. Posey knew that ghost. It looked like a white sheet with two huge black eyes. The first time Posey walked past it, the ghost shook and made spooky noises. She had been a bit scared of it too. Poor little guy, come to Gramps. He held Danny in his lap. Don't worry, Danny, Posey said. She squeezed his cheeks. Ghosts aren't real. They are only make-believe. How did the two of you do with the pumpkins? Posey's mom asked. Great, said Posey. I'm waiting for Posey to draw the face she wants me to carve, Gramps said. I'll go get my marker, Posey got up from the couch. Bring down your costume for Gramps to see, she said her mom. Okay. Posey ran up to her room. Her costume was hanging in the closet. Her mom had made a beautiful dress with sparkly material. When Posey moved, the whole dress sparkled. Okay, there it is. It's hard to see. There's little sparkles on it. She put it on and ran back downstairs. That was quick, Gramps said. What happened to your tutu? It's right here. Posey lifted up her dress. Her mom and Gramps laughed. Are you going to wear them both? Her mom said. So she has a little tutu on and she has her Halloween dress on over it. She's going to wear them both, of course, said Posey. She always wore her tutu. She put it on every day after school. Posey never told anyone, but when she wore her tutu, she was Princess Posey. Okay, so Posey is a real first name, but when she wears her tutu, she then becomes Princess Posey, but not kind of like a magical princess. She just likes to pretend. Princess Posey could go anywhere and do anything, all by herself. Come over here a minute, said Gramps. Posey stood in front of him. I want to see if that glow is coming from your dress or from the inside of you, Gramps said. He held Posey's ear and pretended to peer inside. Posey giggled and squirmed. It tickled. Just what I thought, Gramps let go of her ear. You are glowing from the inside out. He's looking in her ear and pretending that she's glowing from the inside of her ear. Posey twirled to make her dress billow out. Did you ask Gramps if he will help make your hat? Her mom asked. Will you, Gramps? Said Posey. Sure, said Gramps. I guess you need a fireman's hat with that costume. No, Posey knew he was teasing. Do you need a baseball hat? Gramps, I need a princess hat, Posey said. Oh, a princess hat, Gramps said. Why didn't you say so? I'll come over tomorrow afternoon. Okay, so Posey likes to pretend she's a princess, and she calls herself Princess Posey. And when she's Princess Posey, she can do anything. And her Halloween dress is a princess dress. And her grandfather is going to help make a hat for it. Ooh, Chapter 5, The Ogre's Eyeball. An ogre is like a monster. An ogre. It's spelled very strangely. That's O-G-R-E. You think it would be agre, O-G-R-E. See, the R is before the E. But there's some words, if you have an R-E, it's pronounced ogre. I can't think of another word at the moment, but there are other words like that. The English spelling of tire is like that. Here we go. Tire. Yeah, no, the American spelling, Tire. Tire. It's even though it's re. It's not Tyra. So this is Ogre's Eyeball. The next afternoon, Posey sat on the steps to wait for Gramps. She could hardly wait to show him her drawing of the hat. She had made it up herself. "Hey, Posey," a voice called. "Come see our costumes." Tyler was in the driveway. He had a silver helmet on his head. See the picture of him there? You can't see that it's silver, but that's supposed to be silver. Posey ran next door. Tyler's arms and legs were silver too. He had huge gloves on his hands. "I know what you're supposed to be," said Posey. "An astronaut." "Right," Tyler said. "I wrapped tinfoil around my football helmet and everything. These are my hockey gloves." "You look so real," said Posey. "What is Nick going to be?" "A really gross ogre." That means monster, remember? Said Tyler. "Here he comes." The back door of his house slammed. The ogre that came out didn't look like Nick at all. It had scraggly gray hair and a hunched back. It was dressed in ripped clothes. It walked with a limp. The scariest part of the ogre's was the ogre's face. One of his eyeballs drooped. It was hanging out a little bit. His nose looked broken. His face was all full of wrinkles. The closer the ogre got, the more real it looked. Posey stepped back. "What are you afraid of?" Tyler said. "It's a rubber mask." "I don't like those," said Posey. She had touched a rubber mask in a store one time. It felt cold, like dead skin. "Say something to her, Nick," said Tyler. "Trick or treat," Nick said in a growly voice. Okay, trick or treat. "Trick or treat," Nick said in a growling voice. "Catch." He threw something to her. Posey caught it. Yuck! It was sticky and slimy. Posey looked down. It was the ogre's eyeball. Look at that. See, she's holding an eyeball. I bet it's not real. Chapter 6. Okay, this is going pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of the book to you. Chapter 6. "You're a scaredy cat." Posey screamed. "Ah!" She dropped the eyeball and rubbed her hands against her pants. Nick and Tyler laughed. "Hey, careful with that," said Nick. He took off his mask. The gray hair came off with it. See, there's the ogre's mask. See how he looks there? He's missing an eyeball because Nick took it out. It was Nick, all right. Okay, so that's Nick. And he took off his ugly mask. He picked up the eyeball and stuck it on his mask. "How do you expect me to see without my eyeball?" he said. "You're so mean, Nick," Posey shouted. She stomped back to her own yard. "What's wrong, scaredy cat?" Tyler shouted. "I thought you were a big kid now." "I'm not a scaredy cat," Posey shouted. "You're a scaredy cat." Oh, that'll teach him. Gramps had pulled into the driveway. "Sounds like the two of you are up two of them are up to their old tricks," he said. "What did they do this time?" Posey told him about the sticky eyeball. "I guess you have to kind of expect that kind of gag on Halloween," Gramps said. "From the sound of it, you took care of yourself." He held open the door. "Come on, let's go make that hat." Gramps whistled when he saw Posey's drawing. "Pretty fancy stuff," he said. That's the drawing. See the drawing of the hat there? That's the drawing. Where did you get this idea?" "From my imagination," said Posey. Her drawing showed a tall, pointed hat. It looked like a wizard's hat, except it was pink. "I want to cut stars all over it," she said, "and those little moons that look like a sea." "That's a crescent moon," Gramps said. "I like those," Posey said. "I'm going to put glitter on it so that it sparkles. I want ribbons to come out of the top." See, they got glitter on it, and she's got cutouts of moons and stars and sparkles. "That's quite a hat," Gramps said. "I'm proud of you." "There won't be another one like it, will there?" Posey said. "Not unless there's another Posey," said Gramps. Posey and Gramps got to work. Making her hat was so much fun, they almost forgot about the ogre's eyeball. But not quite. She's still a little bit scared about the ogre's eyeball. Just like a flashlight. Chapter 7. Posey told her mom about the eyeball when she got ready for bed. It wasn't real, Posey said, but you thought it was at first, said her mom. It felt real, she said. Posey said. She squeezed toothpaste onto her brush. She's getting ready for bed, just like you girls do. Putting toothpaste on her toothbrush. Mom's talking to her. Are you okay about it now? Her mom asked. Yes, but Danny wouldn't like it. No, her mom smiled. About all Danny can take at his age is his bumblebee costume. So Danny's wearing a bumblebee costume. He should carry Gramps' flashlight so he won't be scared, said Posey. Good idea, said her mom. That reminds me, Mrs. Romero brought something over for you today. I'll be right back. I wonder who Mrs. Romero is. Posey brushed her teeth and turned on her nightlight. Then she got into bed. Her mom came back and sat on the edge. Mrs. Romero thought you could wear this tomorrow night, she said. She gave Posey a paper bag. There was a large plastic circle inside. It was pale pink. A large plastic circle. It was pale pink. Mrs. Romero said it's called a glow necklace, her mom said. When you bend it a little, it will glow pink. It was pretty. Posey thought it would be fun to wear a glowing pink necklace. It will be just like having a flashlight, her mom said, except you don't have to hold it. Just like a flashlight? Posey frowned. She put the necklace on her bedside table. Don't you like it? Her mom said. Flashlights are for babies, said Posey. Oh, I see. Her mom looked at her for a minute. It was nice of Mrs. Romero to give it to you, she said. I know, said Posey. You need to thank her tomorrow. I will. Her mom stood up. Mom, Posey said, what do you think will be in the monster stew? Are you still worried about that? Said her mom. What do you think will? Oh, I don't know, her mom smiled. All kinds of silly, funny things. It's make-believe, remember? I remember. And after her mom went downstairs, Posey got out of bed. She went to her drawer and took out her tutu. She brought it into bed and put it under the covers. Posey knew Monster Stew was make-believe, but sometimes make-believe felt as real, like the eyeball. Posey held her tutu against her face. Princess Posey was brave. Okay, when she has her tutu, she's very brave, so that's when she went to get her tutu. She wouldn't be afraid of Monster Stew or going trick-or-treating without a flashlight, so Posey wouldn't be afraid either. Chapter 8, and there she is. She's holding her tutu, and she's going to sleep. She's a big girl now. She's 6. Wow, look at everybody. They're all dressed up. Interesting. It says this is the hallway of the school. Monster Stew. When Posey got to school the next day, it looked like Halloween. She walked past the principal on her way to Miss Lee's class. The principal had a red ball on her nose. She wore a green wig. Okay, that's the principal there. Red ball on her nose. Did the staff and the teachers and the principal at your school dress up for Halloween? I don't know. They never did when I was a kid. But kids have more fun now. I know what you are, Posey said. You're a clown. The teachers were wearing costumes too. Some wore witches' hats. One teacher had a pretend wart on the tip of his nose. Miss Lee wore black pants and a black shirt. The shirt had a cat made out of orange sequins on the front. Posey was so excited, everyone was. It was hard to do normal work. Miss Lee let them go outside for a long recess. When they got back to the room, there was a table in front of her desk. It was covered with an orange tablecloth. In the middle of the table was a large black pot. Smoke was coming out of it. Ooh! Everyone got quiet when they saw it. "It's a witch's pot," Posey whispered. "It's for the monster stew," said Nicky. "What do you think is in there?" Ava asked. She sounded scared. "Make-believe stuff," Posey said. "Like what?" said Ava. The boys had crowded in front of the table. They pushed and shoved. They tried to look in. "Careful, boys," said Miss Lee. Here we go. I'll show you the picture while I'm reading. "Careful, boys," said Miss Lee. "We want to know what's in it," said Luca. "All sorts of scary things that you're going to love, Luca," Miss Lee teached, "like bats' blood and lizards' livers." Like bats' blood and lizard livers. "Cool," said Luca. "What about eyeballs?" said Will. "My brother said his had eyeballs." "That's right, Will. Monster eyeballs," Miss Lee laughed. "Now, you go and sit down, all of you." Monster eyeballs? Posey rubbed her hands against her pants. She was not going to eat that monster stew. Ugh. See, she's imagining it's a stew that's got eyeballs in it. I don't think I'd want to eat that. "And what if you don't want it? What if you don't want to eat it?" Ava whispered. "They can't make us," Posey said. "But what if they do?" Poor Ava, she sounded like she was going to cry. Posey had to do something. "I'm going to tell Miss Lee," she said. She's going to tell Miss Lee that Ava's getting ready to cry because she's so scared. I bet Posey's kind of scared too, but anyway. Chapter 9. What's going to happen? What do you think is in the monster stew? Keeping a secret. Chapter 9 is called Keeping a Secret. Secret is spelled, how do you spell it? S-E-C-R-E-T. Keeping a secret. Posey marched up to Miss Lee's desk. Miss Lee was putting things in a large box. "Miss Lee, no one can make us eat that stew," Posey declared. "Make you? What an idea, Posey," Miss Lee said. "No one has to eat it if they don't want to." "Ava's afraid," Posey said. "Ava doesn't have to be afraid. I promise," Miss Lee leaned down. "Can you keep a secret?" she whispered. Posey nodded. Keeping a secret was important, especially if it was for Miss Lee. "These are the lizard livers." Miss Lee lifted a plastic bag out of the box just high enough for Posey to see. It was filled with raisins. Okay, so that's it. The lizard livers were really raisins. Posey's eyes got big. "And these," Miss Lee held up another bag, "are the monster's eyeballs." "Grapes. They're grapes." The monster's eyeballs were green grapes. They were peeled so that they looked slimy. Posey clapped her hands over her mouth. "You can tell Ava she doesn't need to worry," Miss Lee said, "but don't ruin it for everyone else, okay?" "Okay," said Posey. She hurried back to Ava and Nicky. "Don't be afraid," she told Ava. "It's so funny, I promise." Miss Lee's and Ms. Worski's classes loved the monster stew. They laughed and shouted every time Miss Lee put in another silly thing. Eyeballs and raisins. "And now for the final ingredient," Miss Lee said at the end. She held up a pitcher. "Bat's blood." "That's grape juice," they all shouted. Posey and Ava and Nicky had so much fun. It was the best Halloween ever. Monster stew. Okay, this is the last chapter. Glowing from the inside out. "Let me go first, Mom," Posey said. "Okay," said her mom. Posey ran ahead up Ms. Romero's sidewalk. A pumpkin with a crooked smile sat beside the door. A candle flickered inside. Oh, look. There's Princess Posey. Doesn't she look cute in her costume? And look at that hat that she made with her grandfather. In the background, that's Danny. Her mother's holding Danny there, and that must be Mrs. Romero. Let's see. Night was all around. A candle flickered inside. Night was all around. Other children were trick-or-treating up and down the street. Posey knocked on Mrs. Romero's door. She heard Hero, that must be the dog, bark inside. Then footsteps. "Trick or treat," Posey shouted when Mrs. Romero opened her door. "Why, Posey," Mrs. Romero said, "you are the most sparkly princess I have ever seen." Sparkly. Gramps said I looked like a moonbeam, said Posey. "He's right," said Mrs. Romero. "Where's Hero?" said Posey. "I wanted to see him." "I put him in the study," said Mrs. Romero. "Some children are afraid of dogs." Posey's mom came onto the porch with Danny. "What do you have inside your hat?" Mrs. Romero asked. "The stars and the moons are shining." "It's your necklace," said Posey. "I didn't need it outside. I needed it inside." Oh, she put the glowing necklace inside her hat, and then she has holes in her hat so it shines through. "That's about the prettiest thing I've ever seen," Mrs. Romero said. She held out a bowl of candy. "Take one for yourself and one for Danny, too." Posey took a piece of candy for herself. She put another one in Danny's pumpkin. "Did you thank Mrs. Romero?" her mom said. "Thank you," Posey sang. She skipped back down the walk and onto the sidewalk. A group of boys was walking past. One of them was an ogre. "Trick or treat," he said in a growly voice. That's actually Tyler, I'll bet. Or maybe it's Nick. "You didn't scare me, Nick," Posey said. "Cool hat," said the ogre. "It was so much fun to be out at night. The dark was so exciting." Posey floated from house to house. She glowed from the inside out the whole way. Look at that. See, her hat's glowing because she has a glowing necklace inside her hat, and her hat has little holes in it for the stars and the crescent moon. And there's everybody. See all their costumes? There they all are. And that's it. That's the end of the book, Princess Posey and the Monster Stew. And I need to know whether you like this book because this is a series. There are other Princess Posey books, not as many as the Kingdom of Renly books, but there are maybe 6 or 7 Princess Posey books. So if you like it, I will get another one and read it to you. That's all for now, girls. Bye-bye.